Congressman Pete Sessions. Congressman, thanks for being here. Is there any reason for us to believe that this time is going to be different than with the previous back and forth we've seen with Iran since February?
I think that the combination of getting other nations involved, you remember before it was Pakistan, now it's closer neighbors that they have. I think that it is serious. It's harming the infrastructures of all of these countries that are impacted. It is impacting the lives of their daily citizens. It's moved past what might be just those in the military. And I think it is serious. And I think the president's plan that he's had up to now to bring them closer to where they will want to have conversation is what this is about. So, yes, I think it's real, and I'm delighted that Israel and the United States see the future the same way of where we're headed.
I don't know whether you saw this report in the Washington Post, but it was that the head of the U.S. European Command told the Pentagon that because of the Iran war, he doesn't have sufficient forces to provide both air defenses for Israel and for the United States, and that he's going to have to shift resources away from Israel's air defense. This seems like it's concrete evidence that the funding problem for the Pentagon is affecting the strategy and the options that our military has. Is that right? Have we reached the crunch time?
Well, we've known for quite some time that this would require not only more money. As you know, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was up asking for $80 billion very quickly. It is pushing Washington and members of Congress to provide the Pentagon with the things they would need to protect, not just the United States, but also Israel. So, yes, these are indications as we move forward that the Congress has to do its job. And with the House being out now and the Senate last week, we need them to act.
Okay, but so you guys, as you say, you greenlit the packages nearly $100 billion before you left town, but you did include parts of the president's priority project, the SAVE Act on elections. That's not going to fly in this. Oh, go ahead.
Actually, what we did is we changed the language. It's now an ID bill, and the ID bill is substantially different and should be closer to meeting the objections of people. The ID bill now says that what you've got to do in federal law is provide an ID to be able to vote. And it moves past what had been the Save America Act to closer language. I've been thinking that this is what we ought to do once again, when we knew about this a month ago. And the development of that language, I think, is very good. And that was included in what we gave to the United States Senate. So I see really no objection. I don't know why a Republican senator would be against requiring an ID to vote.
So by shifting the language and making it more focused on the part that's overwhelmingly popular with voters, you think that you can get the Senate to kick loose here. But should you guys
I think we were overwhelmingly in the 80% range of all Americans, not just Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. I'm simply saying the language has changed rather significantly and would be to the advantage of trying to get a deal. And I am for this. We voted for it. The House voted for it. It sits in the Senate.
Okay. Here is a chart that shows the president's average job approval and the average price of a gallon of regular unleaded since February. Do you notice something there? You have been very supportive of doing what it takes to win this war. And I hear your optimism talking about bringing other people in. But you've said that if
I don't know why I've lost coverage with you. I can see your chart.
It's a good chart. We like the chart. And basically what it says is that when gas prices go up, the president's popularity goes down. If there is not public support for this conflict, and it's pretty clear that there isn't, would we be writing a check, essentially, that we can't cash if the president were to escalate and put boots on the ground and secure Carg Island or do any of those things that you and other Republicans have talked about as maybe being necessary?
Let's be quite clear here. We do recognize and know that the closer that gas goes or stays at $4 or above, it is a problem. It's a problem when you go to an election. But with that said, I think the American people also recognize that what we're attempting to do is to take on the Iranians on our time scale, not theirs. If we had waited much longer, it would be an impossible task. Today, it's simply very difficult. So I think that it does throw complexities. I don't think Republicans have to lose the election. We've got opponents that we are up against, and those opponents, in my opinion, have far weaker credentials, and it is about where the country is going to head, not just where the country is.
So on that opponents and elections question, there is this big brouhaha in Washington over the president's fund, he calls the anti-weaponization fund, and the IRS exemption for him and his family. I know for sure that this is a huge loser with independent voters. The president is very adamant about this, and the Republicans in the Senate won't go along. Do you think the president should step back on this one, at least until after midterms, so that it doesn't continue to be an issue?
Let's be straightforward. It is not involved in any piece of legislation that we have provided the Senate. And the president, I'm sure, does want these issues, and probably for good reason. But if we cannot pass them in the House, they cannot get to the Senate, and if the Senate will not handle them, they will not be added. See, we're out for the entire month of August. Mm-hmm. The president and the Senate needs to take the things which are before them that have passed by the House, and I think that you will see that the president could be very happy with us doing the voter ID bill, funding the government, and making sure that the CR goes to December the 4th. These were all negotiated items and in the best interest of not just the American people, but I think well over 70% of the American people would recognize we're doing the right things.
All right, it's not 110 degrees in Waco yet. Not yet today. All right, America, if you knew that Zavala, Texas was named for Lorenzo de Zavala, the Mexican rancher and first vice president of the Republic of Texas, you would know him already, but if you don't, there he is, Congressman Pete Sessions. We thank you for your time. Coming up,